I worked at Cartwright Industries for 11 years, building it from the ground up. Then, without warning, the CEO's son Tyler fired me on his very first day. He smirked as security escorted me out, humiliating me in front of colleagues who wouldn't meet my eyes. My assistant Daniel, who I'd mentored for 3 years, already knew. His promotion email was dated days before my termination. That night, my ex-wife called about missed alimony. The money I promised would come with my next paycheck, a check that would never arrive. My daughter's tuition was now at risk too. They thought I was disposable. They were wrong. What Tyler didn't know was that I had built safeguards into our biggest contracts, naming me specifically. He had no idea his arrogant decision would make his entire world collapse. I wasn't coming back for my old job. I was coming back to take control. I was the cornerstone of Cartwright Industries for 11 years. While CEOs came and went, I remained, building relationships, securing contracts, strengthening our market position when others would have let it crumble. I negotiated the clauses that saved us during the recession and personally guaranteed continuity to nervous clients during our merger. The signs were there, if I had been looking. Daniel, my assistant of 3 years, avoiding eye contact all week. Executive meetings suddenly rescheduled when I was unavailable, but loyalty had made me blind. When Marcus Cartwright had shaken my hand at his daughter's wedding 2 months ago, calling me the backbone of this company, I believed we shared mutual respect. Friday afternoon, Marcus's secretary called. "He needs to see you immediately." I grabbed my tablet, expecting another fire to extinguish. Instead, I found Tyler Cartwright, Marcus's 27-year-old son, fresh from his 3rd bachelor's degree, sitting in his father's chair. Marcus stood by the window staring out at the city he had supposedly built. "We are restructuring the executive team," Tyler said without rising, fingers steepled like he had practiced the pose in a mirror. "Your position has been eliminated, effective immediately." I looked to Marcus, waiting for him to speak. He did not even turn around. "You have until 5 p.m. to clear out your office," Tyler continued, already checking his phone. "Security will escort you out." "The Orland Ventures contract," I said calmly. "Section 47.3 specifically names me as account manager, if I leave." "We have reviewed all contracts," Tyler cut me off. "Legal assures me we are covered, and frankly, Daniel will handle Orland better than you ever did." Security watched me pack 11 years into a cardboard box. As I passed Daniel's desk, I saw his computer screen, an email congratulating him on his promotion to my position. It was dated Tuesday, 3 days before my termination. They had planned this, coordinated it, probably laughed about it over drinks. In the parking garage, my phone rang, my ex-wife calling about the missed alimony payment. The one I had explained would be late because I had put our daughter's tuition first this month. The payment I had promised would come with my next check, a check that would never arrive. I did not rage that weekend. I did not drink myself numb or call old colleagues begging for support. Instead, I methodically reviewed every contract, every email, every document I had prudently backed up over my tenure. By Monday morning, I understood exactly how fragile their foundation had become without me to maintain it. The Orland contract was my masterpiece, a partnership worth millions that I had personally secured when the company was struggling. Section 47.3 was my insurance policy, naming me specifically as the relationship manager. If I left the company, Orland could terminate, with minimal penalty, and if Orland terminated, 6 other contracts had contingency clauses that would activate. The Miyake Corp CEO had been my roommate in college. The Stellar Holdings partnership existed solely because Bernard, their chairman, trusted me personally after I had resolved a dispute that could have ended in litigation. These were not just accounts. They were relationships built on trust with me, not with Cartwright Industries. By Tuesday, the first tremors began. Orland Ventures called Daniel 3 times. He could not answer their questions about the amendment I had drafted last quarter. The Miyake Corp CEO texted me directly. "Heard the news, disturbing, call when you can." I did not respond. Not yet. Then came the email from Bernard at Stellar Holdings, our biggest client. Tried reaching out to Cartwright's new team. No response. You always picked up on the first ring. Call me. I saved the message but did not call. The pressure needed to build. On Thursday, my phone rang. Marcus Cartwright, calling from his personal cell. We need to talk, he said. His voice lacked its usual authority. I am listening. I sat in my home office, contracts spread before me. Tyler. May have been hasty. There are some unforeseen complications with client transitions. Unforeseen by whom? I asked. Section 47.3 in the Orland contract is there because I insisted on it. The Miyake Corp relationship exists because they're CEO, and I've known each other for 20 years. Stellar Holdings stayed with us through the merger because I personally guaranteed continuity. Silence on the line. I built that department, I continued, each word precise. I protected this company while you attended charity galas and Tyler finished his 3rd degree. What do you want? Marcus finally asked. COO position, board seat, triple my previous salary, and Tyler reports to me, not the other way around. That is outrageous. Tyler is my son. He is the future of. Tyler is the reason Orland is threatening to invoke Section 47.3. Tyler is why Stellar Holdings called me this morning about moving their business. Tyler fired the only person who understands the regulatory framework that keeps this company compliant. Another silence, longer this time. I will need to discuss this with the board, Marcus said finally. Do that. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, I take Bernard's call. I hung up and looked at the photograph on my desk. Me standing beside Marcus at the company's 10th anniversary, his arm around my shoulder, both of us smiling. I placed it face down and closed my eyes. They tried to negotiate, of course, offered me my old position back with a modest raise. I declined without hesitation. They suggested a new title with limited authority. I declined again. They threatened legal action. I sent copies of emails showing they had planned my termination, while simultaneously assigning me additional responsibilities, evidence of bad faith that would sink them in any courtroom. Friday afternoon, Bernard called again. Still waiting. To hear from you, he said. The new guy, Daniel, finally called. Could not answer basic questions about our agreement. I am in discussions with Cartwright, I said carefully. Whatever they are offering, we would match it, Bernard said. We work with Cartwright because of you, not their name. I will keep that in mind. Over the weekend, Orland Ventures' legal team sent formal notice to Cartwright Industries, citing Section 47.3 and my departure as grounds for contract review. By Sunday night, Marcus called again. The board wants to meet tomorrow, he said. Your terms will be met. All of them? Yes, he said, strain evident in his voice. All of them. I will be there at 9. On Monday morning, I walked back into Cartwright Industries, not through the side entrance as before, but through the main lobby. The security guard who had escorted me out 10 days earlier now nodded respectfully. In the elevator, an executive assistant whispered to her colleague, "That is him, the new COO." Tyler was waiting in the conference room, along with Marcus and the board. The son looked furious. The father looked defeated. "Welcome back," said the board chair, sliding the contract across the table. I read every line before signing. Everything I had demanded was there, but I was not finished. "There is one more thing," I said, pulling a folder from my briefcase. Evidence of financial improprieties I discovered during my review. Specifically, questionable transfers authorized by Tyler to offshore accounts during his brief tenure. Tyler's face went white. "Dad, he is making this up." I slid the documents to the board chair. The SEC would be very interested in these transactions. The board chair reviewed the documents, expression grave. These transfers were not approved by the finance committee. They were operational expenses, Tyler insisted, voice rising. I had authority. To transfer funds to a shell company in the Caymans? I asked quietly. One registered 3 days after you took control? Marcus stared at his son. "What did you do?" "Nothing that cannot be fixed," I answered for him. provided Tyler takes an extended leave of absence, permanently. The board did not even need to vote. Tyler's recklessness had given me the final piece I needed. "You set me up," Tyler hissed as I left the room. "No," I replied. "I just paid attention, something you never learned to do." Within an hour, Tyler was escorted out just as I had been. As he passed my new corner office, I met his eyes. He looked away first. That afternoon, I called Bernard at Stellar Holdings. "I heard you are back," he said, "and with a promotion." "I am, and I would like to discuss expanding our partnership." "Just like that? After they discarded you?" "This company made a mistake," I said. "It will not happen again." Throughout the week, I methodically reconstructed what Tyler had dismantled. The client relations team was reassembled under my direct oversight. Key accounts were personally reassured by me. The offshore funds were quietly returned before any regulatory flags were raised. Marcus avoided me, speaking only when necessary in board meetings. I did not mind. His silence was acknowledgement enough. At Friday's executive committee meeting, I presented a comprehensive restructuring plan. Department heads who had aligned with Tyler found their responsibilities reduced. Those who had shown integrity during my absence were rewarded. "This seems rather punitive," Marcus finally spoke up. "It is meritocratic," I corrected him. "Performance and loyalty should be recognized." The committee approved my plan unanimously. Marcus abstained. It did not matter. His influence diminished with each passing day. 1 month after my return, Tyler attempted to shore up his reputation by approaching Stellar Holdings directly. Bernard informed me immediately. "He suggested your position was temporary," Bernard said, "claimed you had fabricated evidence against him." "Interesting," I said. "What was your response?" "I told him we only deal with people who honor their commitments." Then I hung up. 2 days later, Tyler made his final mistake. He emailed the board directly, claiming whistleblower status and alleging I had manipulated financial data. The email included confidential board discussions, information he could only have received from his father. I called an emergency board meeting. Both Tyler and Marcus were required to attend. "These accusations are serious," I said calmly after the allegations were read. "So serious that I have prepared a complete audit trail of all financial transactions. Before and after my departure, I distributed folders to each board member. You will find Tyler authorized 17 irregular transactions during his brief leadership. You will also find evidence that Marcus was aware of at least 12 of them." The board chair looked up sharply. "Is this accurate, Marcus?" Marcus's face had gone ashen. "I may have approved some transactions without full review." "And the transfers to Cayman accounts?" I asked. I trusted my son's judgment. I opened my laptop and projected an email onto the screen. This message from Marcus to Tyler, dated 1 day after my termination, reads, "Move quickly on the Artemis transfers before anyone notices the discrepancies." Tyler stood abruptly. "This is a setup. He is manipulated." "Sit down, Tyler," the board chair said firmly. "These are your emails authenticated by IT. The SEC has been notified," I continued quietly. "I have recommended they focus their investigation on the individuals involved rather than the company itself." Marcus slumped in his chair. Tyler looked frantically from face to face, finding no allies. The board's decision was unanimous. Marcus would retire immediately, with the SEC investigation determining any further consequences. Tyler would resign all positions and relinquish his shares to cover potential financial penalties. As they were escorted from the building for the last time, I watched from my office window. The same security guard who had supervised my departure now walked them to their cars. The circle was complete. That evening, I called my daughter. "I would like to pay your next semester's tuition directly," I said, "and I have set up a trust for your future education." "Dad, what happened? Mom said you lost your job, but now I am seeing news about you becoming COO. "A temporary setback," I told her. "Nothing for you to worry about." After hanging up, I stood at my office window, looking out at the city. On my desk sat a new photograph, me with the executive team. I had assembled, all of us focused on building something that would last. The photograph with Marcus remained face down in my drawer, a reminder of what happens when loyalty is betrayed. I turned off the lights and walked out, nodding to the security guard as I passed. "Good night, sir," he said with respect in his voice. "Good night, James," I replied, remembering his name. "I will see you tomorrow." The company did not belong to the Cartwrights anymore. It belonged to those who had earned it. As it should be. The following Monday, a corporate lawyer for Tyler reached out suggesting a settlement to avoid further legal troubles. I did not respond. By Wednesday, the business press had picked up the story. Cartwright Industries leadership shakeup, financial improprieties under investigation, read one headline. I received a call from a senior partner at Tyler's third alma mater, where Tyler had just been appointed to the alumni board. "We understand there are some concerning allegations," the partner said carefully. "Perhaps we could discuss them privately before they become more public." "Any concerns should be directed to the SEC," I replied. "I am focused on stewarding this company." By Friday, Tyler had resigned from 3 corporate boards, and his membership at the exclusive Westlake Club was under review. The consequences were rippling outward. The next board meeting, I brought forward my vision for Cartwright Industries, or as I proposed to rename it, CI Global. The Cartwright name had become a liability. The board agreed without hesitation. "This company was built on relationships that I cultivated," I explained. "We need to move beyond the legacy of a single family and recognize the collective effort that drives our success." The press release went out Monday morning. By noon, our stock had risen 6%. Analysts praised the decisive leadership change and new corporate direction. One even noted, "After years of nepotistic leadership concerns, CI Global appears positioned for meritocratic growth." 2 weeks later, I received a handwritten letter from Marcus. I considered not opening it, but curiosity won out. "You have destroyed my family legacy," it read. "Tyler cannot find work in any respectable firm. My reputation is ruined. Was this your plan all along?" I did not respond. There was nothing to say. He had made his choice when he stood silently by as his son discarded me. Actions have consequences, professional ones and personal ones too. 6 months after my return, CI Global acquired a smaller competitor that had been one of Tyler's pet projects before his dismissal. The acquisition completed our market dominance in 3 key sectors. My assistant, a recent business school graduate, named Michael, informed me that Tyler had attempted to block the deal through his remaining connections. "He failed," Michael added. "Rather spectacularly." "Of course he did," I replied. "Competence always outlasts connections." The annual Industry Awards dinner arrived, and I found myself nominated for Executive of the Year. As I accepted the award, I caught sight of Marcus sitting at a distant table, gray and diminished. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away. In my acceptance speech, I spoke about integrity, perseverance, and the value of institutional knowledge. I never mentioned the Cartwrights, but everyone in the room understood the subtext. Afterward, several executives approached me with knowing looks and subtle congratulations that went beyond the award. They had watched the collapse of entitled privilege and the triumph of earned authority. Some had likely experienced similar betrayals in their own careers. "You handled that situation masterfully," whispered the CEO of our largest competitor. "Marcus never understood what he had in you." "He understands now," I replied. The following quarter, our earnings exceeded projections by 20%. The board approved a company-wide bonus and promoted 3 more of my recommended candidates to executive positions. The last remnants of the old guard were politely but firmly transitioned out. I received an invitation to speak at my daughter's university about corporate leadership and ethics. Standing at the podium, looking out at those young faces, I spoke honestly about betrayal, resilience, and the patience required for justice. You will encounter people who believe their position grants them immunity from consequences, I told them. They are always wrong. A year after my return, CI Global had transformed. Quarterly earnings consistently exceeded projections. Our client base had expanded by 30%. The stock price had doubled. What Tyler had tried to dismantle in days, I had rebuilt stronger over months. I rarely thought about the Cartwrights anymore. Their chapter in the company history was closing, but occasionally news would filter through. Marcus had sold his vacation home in the Hamptons. Tyler was rumored to be working for a distant relative's small business in another state. Then Bernard from Stellar Holdings called. I thought you should know. Tyler approached one of our board members at a charity event. He was quite intoxicated, making accusations about you. Said you had manufactured evidence and destroyed his family. Did your board member believe him? I asked, unconcerned. Quite the opposite. She recorded the entire conversation on her phone and sent it to me. Thought we might need it for security purposes. Forward it to me, I said. For documentation. The recording revealed more than just Tyler's bitterness. He mentioned specifics about current CI Global projects, confidential information he should not have known. Someone inside was still feeding him information. I assigned Michael, now my chief of staff, to quietly investigate. Within 3 days, he identified 3 executives from the old regime who maintained contact with Tyler. Each had successfully navigated my initial restructuring by pledging loyalty to the new direction. Rather than confronting them directly, I created a strategic trap. I circulated slightly different versions of a confidential acquisition plan to each suspected leaker. When Tyler approached a potential acquisition target with specific details only contained in one version, I had my answer. The executive, Harrison Price, had been with the company almost as long as I had. We had once considered each other friends. I called him into my office late Friday afternoon. Harrison, do you recall the Anderson merger 5 years ago? Of course, he said, relaxing slightly at the historical topic. Tough negotiation, but we closed it successfully. You and I stayed up 3 nights straight finalizing those terms, I said, watching him carefully. Do you remember what you told me on the 3rd night? He smiled cautiously. That if I ever had to choose between loyalty to the company and loyalty to the Cartwrights, I would choose the company, every time. Yet here we are. I turned my monitor toward him, showing emails between him and Tyler spanning the past 6 months. You did not choose the company. You chose a failed heir who was removed for financial impropriety. The color drained from his face. I can explain. There is no explanation needed. Your security clearance has already been revoked. Human Resources has your final paperwork. You have 30 minutes to collect your personal items. You cannot just discard people who disagree with you, he said, anger replacing shock. This is not about disagreement. This is about corporate espionage. The board will decide next week whether to pursue legal action. As he was escorted out, I noticed other executives watching. The message was clear. The last threads of the Cartwright era were being severed. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Marcus's attorney, requesting a private meeting. Curious, I agreed to breakfast, at a discreet location. Mr. Cartwright is concerned about his legacy, the attorney began after pleasantries. He proposes removing his son's name from all ongoing investigations in exchange for certain concessions. What concessions? The company name would revert to Cartwright Industries. Marcus would be given the honorary title of Chairman Emeritus, and all internal documents about the irregular financial transactions would be sealed permanently. I sipped my coffee before responding. The company name has already been legally changed. Our stock price has benefited from distancing ourselves from the Cartwright scandals, and those documents are evidence in an active SEC investigation. My client is prepared to be generous in exchange for these accommodations. I do not need generosity. I need accountability. Your client stood by while his son fired me without cause. He approved irregular financial transactions. He has made his choices, and now he must accept the consequences. Marcus is an old man who has lost everything. the attorney said, changing tactics. His health is failing. Could you not show some compassion? I thought of the day I was escorted out, my belongings in a box. I remembered the call from my ex-wife about the missed alimony, the tuition payment for my daughter that was nearly derailed. Compassion was always available, I replied. It required only honesty and respect. Neither was forthcoming when it mattered. The time for negotiations has passed. The attorney's final appeal came 2 days later. A handwritten note from Marcus himself delivered to my home address. I am dying, it read. Please allow me to leave this world with my name intact. It is all I have left. I placed the note in my safe alongside the termination notice Tyler had given me. Documentation of the beginning and the apparent end. At the next board meeting, I announced a new charitable foundation funded by CI Global. Its mission would support education for low-income students with demonstrated merit. We would name it after my mother, a school teacher who had worked 2 jobs to give me opportunities. This foundation represents our values, I told the board. Merit, hard work, dedication, the belief that those who contribute should be recognized and rewarded. The press coverage was extensive and positive. Industry leaders praised the initiative. Applications to join our executive team increased 3-fold. The contrast with the Cartwright legacy grew starker with each passing day. 3 months later, Marcus Cartwright passed away. The obituary in the business press was brief, noting his founding of the company, but focusing primarily on the financial scandals that had marked the end of his career. Tyler was mentioned only as his surviving son. I sent an appropriate flower arrangement to the funeral but did not attend. That chapter was closed. The week after the funeral, Tyler made one final desperate attempt. He gave an interview to a business magazine, claiming he had been the victim of a calculated revenge plot. He alleged evidence had been manufactured and insisted his father had been driven to an early grave by false accusations. The magazine reached out to me for comment. CI Global has moved beyond personalities to focus on performance, I responded. Our record speaks for itself. The article was published with Tyler's claims prominently featured. By coincidence, the same issue included the annual rankings of corporate leadership. CI Global topped the list for ethical governance and sustainable growth. 2 days after publication, the magazine issued a retraction and apology for Tyler's unsubstantiated allegations. Their legal team had received comprehensive documentation contradicting each claim. The reporter who had filed the story was reassigned. Tyler disappeared from public view after that. Rumors placed him in Europe, then South America. His name faded from conversation in business circles. At our annual shareholder meeting, an elderly investor approached me. I have held stock since the Cartwright days, she said. I almost sold everything when the scandals broke. But something told me to wait and see what you would do. And are you satisfied with that decision? I asked. My portfolio has never performed better, she smiled. When you took over, it was about more than just the money. It was about proving that competence matters more than connections. It always has, I replied, and it always will. That night, as I worked late in my office, I opened the drawer where I kept the face-down photograph of Marcus and me from happier days. I considered it for a moment, then dropped it into the shredder. Some memories serve no purpose but to remind us of lessons already learned. 5 years after my return, I rarely thought about the day Tyler Cartwright fired me. CI Global had grown beyond recognition from the company I had once served. We had expanded internationally, acquired 6 competitors, and our stock had split twice. My executive team was composed entirely of people I had personally selected for their competence and integrity. The Cartwright name had faded from corporate memory. Even the building had been renamed and remodeled. Only in my private moments did I reflect on the journey from that cardboard box in my arms to the corner office I now occupied as CEO, not just COO. The board had elevated me to Chief Executive Officer 18 months after my return. The vote had been unanimous. My leadership had transformed a company in crisis into an industry leader. Meritocracy had replaced nepotism. Excellence had overcome entitlement. I was reviewing acquisition proposals when Michael knocked on my door. "Sir, there is someone here to see you. He does not have an appointment, but he is insistent." "Who is it?" Michael hesitated. "Tyler Cartwright." I set down my tablet. 5 years since I had last seen him being escorted from the building. "Send him in." The man who entered was barely recognizable. Gone was the entitled swagger, the designer suits, the carefully maintained appearance. This Tyler was gaunt, his clothing rumpled, his eyes darting nervously around my office. "Thank you for seeing me," he said, his voice hoarse. I motioned to the chair across from my desk. "What can I do for you, Tyler?" He sat, hands fidgeting in his lap. "I need a job, any position. I will start at the bottom." "Why come to me?" "After everything?" "Because nowhere else will even consider me. Your name carries weight now. If you gave me a recommendation, a chance to rebuild." "And why would I do that?" Tyler leaned forward. "Because you won, completely. My father died with nothing. I have been unemployable for 5 years. I have lost everything. Is that not enough?" I studied him silently. The son who had fired me without a second thought on his first day of unearned power. The man who had tried to destroy my reputation after I exposed his incompetence. The heir who had squandered his birthright through arrogance. Success was never about defeating you, Tyler. It was about building something valuable that rewards merit over privilege. "But you have to admit you wanted revenge," he pressed, desperation in his voice. "You got it thoroughly. Now you can be magnanimous in victory." I opened my desk drawer and removed a file. "This contains every email, document, and record pertaining to my dismissal and subsequent return. Every attempt you made to undermine me afterward. Every false accusation. I have kept meticulous records." Tyler swallowed hard. "Why show me this now?" "Because I want you to understand something fundamental. This file represents accountability, not vengeance. Every action has consequences, especially for those in positions of power." "So there is no chance? No forgiveness?" I closed the file. Forgiveness is a personal matter. Professional consequences are separate. The company you tried to claim through birthright rather than merit now employs over 10,000 people. Their livelihoods depend on maintaining the highest standards of integrity and competence. "I have changed," Tyler insisted. 5 years of failure teaches hard lessons. Perhaps you have, but this company is no longer the place for the Cartwright name. You need to build your own path now, just as I did after you fired me. Tyler stood defeated. "You will never let it go, will you? This perfect revenge." "This was never about revenge, Tyler. It was about justice, about proving that competence matters more than connections. The company succeeded not because I destroyed you, but because I built something better than what existed before." I walked him to the door. "If you truly want to rebuild, start small. Find work that requires actual skill. Develop expertise that does not depend on your name or family connections. That is the path forward." As the door closed behind him, Michael looked at me questioningly. "Should I have security follow up?" "No." I returned to my desk. "He is no longer relevant to this company." That evening at home, I told my daughter about Tyler's visit. She was in medical school now, her education fully funded by the trust I had established. "Did you feel vindicated seeing him like that?" she asked. "I felt nothing," I replied honestly. "His rise and fall were both of his own making. My focus has always been on building, not destroying." "But you did destroy him," she persisted. "Everyone knows the story." I simply held him accountable. The world did the rest. 2 weeks later, Michael informed me that Tyler had given another interview, this time to a podcast known for rehabilitation stories. I listened to it during my morning workout. "I was raised to believe leadership was my birthright," Tyler explained to the host. "When I fired the company's most valuable executive on my first day, I thought I was asserting authority. Instead, I revealed my incompetence." The host asked if he harbored resentment toward me. How can I? He simply revealed who I truly was. The financial improprieties, the poor decisions, those were all mine. My father enabled me, but I was the architect of my own downfall. I turned off the podcast, surprisingly unmoved by this apparent epiphany. It changed nothing about the past or present. At the next board meeting, we approved the largest expansion in company history. A new headquarters would be built across from the old Cartwright building, now owned by another firm. The architectural rendering showed a modern, transparent structure that reflected our corporate values. This building represents more than growth, I told the board. It embodies our commitment to transparency, sustainability, and looking forward rather than backward. The vote was unanimous, as most had become under my leadership. Afterward, our longest-serving board member, a woman who had been there since the Cartwright days, lingered. "You know," she said, "when you first returned and demanded such sweeping terms, some of us thought it was just about revenge against Tyler and Marcus. And now? Now we understand it was about setting a standard, establishing that leadership is earned through competence, not inherited through privilege." I nodded. That has always been the goal. "Tyler came to see me last week," she added. "Asked me to help him get a position on a charitable board, not ours, a small regional one." "What did you tell him?" "That I would consider it if he completed a year of actual community service first. Actions, not words." A fair response, I agreed. On the 10th anniversary of my return, CI Global held a gala celebration. The company had grown tenfold. Our foundation had provided scholarships to over 500 students. We had been named Most Ethical Corporation 3 years running. During my speech, I made no mention of the Cartwrights or my dismissal and return. Those events had shaped our present but did not define our future. Instead, I focused on the principles that had guided my leadership: merit over privilege, accountability at all levels, consequences matched to actions. As I concluded, I announced my final initiative as CEO. Effective next quarter, I will be stepping into the role of Executive Chairman. Our new Chief Executive Officer will be Michael Chen, who started as my assistant and has earned this position through a decade of exemplary service. The standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes. Michael, visibly moved, shook my hand firmly as he took the podium. "I learned my most important lesson on my first day working for this man," he told the crowd. He said, "In this company, what you know will always matter more than who you know." I have never forgotten it. Later that evening, as the celebration continued, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. 10 years from cardboard box to kingdom. Not for revenge, but for restoration of proper order. Merit had triumphed over privilege. Competence had defeated entitlement. The company would continue to thrive long after the Cartwright name was forgotten. And that was the most complete victory of all. My transition to executive chairman allowed me a broader perspective. While Michael handled daily operations with remarkable skill, I focused on strategic vision and maintaining the culture of excellence we had established. The company continued its upward trajectory, each achievement further validating the merit-based system I had implemented. 15 years had passed since that fateful day when Tyler Cartwright fired me. The memory had faded to a distant footnote in my mind, relevant only as the catalyst for what came after. CI Global had become a case study at leading business schools, cited for its ethical leadership and sustainable growth model. The call from my assistant came on a Tuesday morning. "Sir, there is a reporter from Business Week requesting an interview. They are doing a feature on corporate transformations over the past 2 decades. "Schedule it," I agreed. It might be valuable to share our journey. The reporter who arrived was younger than I expected, barely 30. She set up her recording equipment with practiced efficiency. "Thank you for your time, sir. My editor is particularly interested in the transition from Cartwright Industries to CI Global. It has become something of a legend in business circles." "Legends tend to oversimplify complex situations," I replied. "What specifically interests you?" "The corporate world rarely sees such complete reversals of fortune. You went from being fired to completely replacing the family that built the company. The Cartwright name is essentially erased from the business they founded." The company succeeded because we prioritized competence over connections. The name change reflected our global expansion, not personal animosity. She smiled politely. And yet the timing was remarkable. Within 1 year of your return, both Marcus and Tyler Cartwright were removed, and within 3 years, the family name was gone from the company entirely. Corporate decisions are guided by business considerations, not personal ones. Of course, she nodded, consulting her notes. I actually spoke with Tyler Cartwright last week. He has an interesting perspective on what happened. This caught my attention. Oh? He claimed that while his firing you was clearly a mistake, your subsequent actions were calculated not just to regain your position, but to systematically dismantle his family's legacy. I maintained my measured tone. Tyler fired me cause after I had given 11 years to building this company. When critical client relationships began to collapse in my absence, the board recognized their error and rectified it. The financial improprieties that led to the Cartwrights' removal were their actions, not mine.
He suggested the evidence was exaggerated, if not manipulated. The SEC investigation confirmed every document I presented. The board reviewed all evidence independently. These are matters of record. She shifted tactics. Tyler works at a
small investment firm now, did you know that? I did not. My focus has been on CI Global, not tracking former employees. He told me something interesting. He said every time he applies for positions at major firms, the hiring process advances until suddenly, mysteriously, it stops. He believes you maintain a blacklist. I allowed myself a small smile. I have no need to obstruct Tyler's career. His own actions created his reputation. The business world has a long memory for demonstrated incompetence and ethical lapses. Yet you kept meticulous records of everything. You told him so yourself during your last meeting. Documentation is not the same as vindictiveness. In positions of leadership, accountability matters. Those records protected the company and our shareholders. The interview continued for another hour, covering our expansion, innovations, and corporate culture. But I sensed her persistent interest in the personal dynamics behind the corporate transformation. As she packed up her equipment, she asked one final question. If you could speak to your younger self, the man carrying his belongings out in a cardboard box 15 years ago, what would you tell him? I considered this carefully. I would tell him that the path forward is not about revenge but rebuilding. That holding people accountable for their actions is not vindictive but necessary. And that creating systems where merit trumps privilege benefits everyone, not just himself. After she left, I contacted our media relations team. The Business Week interview may focus more on the Cartwright transition than our current initiatives. Prepare accordingly. 3 weeks later, the article was published. The Executioner: How One Man Transformed Corporate Betrayal into Total Victory, read the headline. Despite my careful framing, the writer had crafted a narrative of calculated revenge, painting me as a methodical corporate assassin who had engineered not just my return, but the complete destruction of the Cartwright legacy. The article included quotes from former executives who had aligned with the Cartwrights describing a systematic purge after my return. It noted that of 20 senior leaders present when I was fired, only 2 remained 5 years later. It detailed the precision with which the Cartwright name had been erased from corporate history, how even the archived photos in the company museum showed me, but rarely, included Marcus or Tyler. Most surprising was a sidebar featuring Tyler himself, photographed in modest surroundings, describing his 15-year struggle to rebuild his life after what he called the most expensive firing in corporate history. He came across as humbled and reflective, acknowledging his mistakes while suggesting the punishment had far exceeded the crime. I set the magazine aside, troubled not by the content but by my reaction to it. Something about seeing Tyler portrayed as a sympathetic figure stirred unexpected emotions. Not guilt, certainly, but perhaps a recognition that the complete nature of his fall had extended beyond what even I had anticipated. That evening, I received a call from Michael. Have you seen the article? I have. It portrays us as ruthless, calculating. It could affect public perception. The company's performance speaks for itself, I replied. One magazine article will not change that. But the story gained traction. Other business publications followed up with retrospectives on the Cartwright era and its demise. A popular business podcast dedicated an episode to analyzing whether my response had been proportionate to the original offense. Tyler received offers to speak at conferences about learning from failure and surviving career catastrophe. At the next board meeting, our public relations director raised concerns. The narrative is shifting. We are being cast as the overreaching, powerful entity, while Tyler Cartwright is positioned as the humbled victim who has paid too high a price for youthful arrogance. Perceptions are temporary. Results are permanent, I responded. Our success validates our methods. But privately, I recognized the potential impact. Public sympathy was unpredictable, and Tyler had found a narrative that resonated, portraying himself as a changed man who had spent 15 years in purgatory for a single day's mistake. I made a decision. The next morning, I called Tyler directly. I saw the Business Week article, I said when he answered. A pause. I assumed you would. Did you call to threaten legal action? No. I called to offer you a consulting position. His shock was audible. You cannot be serious. A 6-month contract. You would provide perspective on potential acquisitions in markets where you now operate. No executive authority, no direct reports, but fair compensation and the CI Global name on your resume afterward. Why now after 15 years? What changed? Nothing changed. The principle remains the same. Merit over privilege. You have spent 15 years learning the business from the ground up. That experience has value, regardless of our history. There was a long silence before he responded. This is not forgiveness. It is not meant to be. It is recognition of earned competence. That has always been the standard. 2 weeks later, Tyler joined as a consultant. His arrival generated significant positive press, with headlines praising CI Global's remarkable corporate reconciliation. Our stock rose 3% on the announcement. Tyler kept a low profile, working diligently on the projects assigned to him. In our few interactions, he was professional and prepared. Whatever personal resentment might remain, it did not interfere with performance. At the end of the 6-month contract, I invited him to my office for a final evaluation. Your analysis of the Southeast Asian market was thorough and insightful, I acknowledged. The acquisition team has incorporated several of your recommendations. Thank you, he said simply. The contract can be extended if you wish to continue. Tyler shook his head. I appreciate the opportunity, but I have received 3 job offers based on this work. I plan to accept one of them. As you should, your skill should be recognized. As he turned to leave, he paused. You know, I spent years hating you for what happened, blaming you for my father's death, for my ruined career, for everything. And now I understand it was never about me, or even about revenge. It was about building something that works the way it should, where the best people succeed regardless of their name or connections. I nodded. Precisely. I will never like you, Tyler added. But I have learned from you. Merit matters. Actions have consequences, and rebuilding takes far longer than destroying. After he left, I walked to the window of my office, looking out at the city skyline that had changed so dramatically over 15 years. The Cartwright name no longer adorned any building in sight. But perhaps its legacy had served a purpose after all, as a lesson in what not to do, in the dangers of entitlement, and in the power of earned authority over inherited privilege. The company I had built would outlast us both, guided by principles, stronger than personalities. And that was a victory more complete than any revenge could ever be.